Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that Anita and her children are about to face their most dangerous adversary yet, one that does not come from the outside, but from within the very bloodlines they swore would never be tainted. Leslie's sudden appearance, armed with secrets capable of dismantling the Dupree family's carefully preserved legacy, sets into motion a storm that no one in the town could have predicted. At the heart of this chaos lies not just greed, but also betrayal, identity, and the unshakable ties of family that are being tested like never before. When Anita first learns that Leslie is in possession of Vernon's secret, his long-concealed relationship with her mother, she understands that this is no ordinary challenge. Vernon, a wealthy politician whose influence extends beyond the confines of their town, has always been the anchor of the Dupree family's public standing. To the community, he is a man of authority, control, and respect, the kind of figure that others dream of aligning themselves with. But behind closed doors, there are cracks in the image, fissures that Leslie is all too eager to exploit. The idea that Leslie, notorious for digging her way into the fortunes of others and causing havoc wherever she goes, is now armed with the revelation that she is Vernon's daughter strikes Anita like a thunderbolt. This means Leslie is not just an intruder, but a legitimate threat to the Dupree inheritance. The weight of this revelation presses hard on Anita's chest. She cannot imagine Vernon openly acknowledging Leslie, because to do so would mean dismantling decades of careful image crafting, undoing the bonds of loyalty that tie the family together, and opening the gates for Leslie to claim what Anita has worked so hard to preserve. Anita has fought for years to ensure that the Dupree name remains untarnished, that her children Danny, Nicole, Kat, and Naomi will inherit not just wealth but legacy. Yet with Leslie stepping into the picture, Anita realizes that all those years of planning may crumble. The shock becomes unbearable when Leslie chooses to reveal her discovery not in whispers, but with the kind of brazen confidence that only someone like her could muster. She delights in Anita's reaction, and in a moment that sends ripples across every corner of the Dupree household, she lets it slip that Anita herself is Vernon's illegitimate daughter. This twist cuts deeper than anything Anita has endured. The implication is not just financial, it is personal, humiliating, and threatens to stain every corner of her existence. To think that her own place in the Dupree family may be questioned makes her blood run cold. Leslie, for her part, revels in her new role. She shares her excitement with her daughter Eva, painting pictures of a glamorous life filled with privilege, comfort, and the kind of wealth Eva never dared to imagine. For Leslie, this is not just a victory, it is the culmination of her years of ambition. She sees herself finally on the cusp of joining the inner circle of the town's most powerful family. But Eva, more grounded and cautious than her mother, finds herself uneasy with the rapid escalation. She watches her mother spend lavishly, adopting the mannerisms of a wealthy socialite before anything has truly been secured. The cars, the clothes, the dinners, all of it feels premature to Eva, who has always lived with the knowledge of what it means to be an outsider, a child born from complicated circumstances. Eva voices her concerns, urging her mother to stop drawing attention to herself. She insists that the wise path is to wait for Vernon's decision, to let him formally acknowledge Leslie instead of forcing the issue through spectacle and rumor. Eva points out that in truth, she and her mother share the same origin. They are both children who were never meant to exist in Vernon's carefully scripted world. Her words cut Leslie in ways she does not expect. Beneath the surface confidence, Leslie is forced to confront a haunting question. What if Vernon refuses her, relegating her once more to the role of an outsider? Anita, unwilling to sit idle while her family is threatened, calls for a secret meeting with Danny and Nicole. The gathering is tense, a closed-door conversation steeped in the weight of the Dupree legacy. Anita lays out the situation plainly. Leslie's claim to the family could dismantle everything. If Leslie is embraced, the Dupree wealth will be splintered, their reputation tarnished, and years of sacrifice undone. Anita's daughters listen in disbelief. Danny, always the sharper of the two, leans back in her chair with a mix of anger and calculation. Nicole, more emotionally driven, bristles at the insult Leslie has inflicted upon their family name. The revelation that Leslie is Vernon's daughter, and thus their sister, is more than they can stomach. Nicole describes it as a humiliation too profound to bear, a slap to the face of the Dupree name. To her, Leslie is a predator, a woman who thrives on exploiting cracks in families to secure her own advantage. The idea of welcoming her as a sister is intolerable. Danny, while equally outraged, approaches it with a colder perspective. She understands Leslie's nature and recognizes that silence will not be an option. Leslie will not fade into the background. She will fight, claw, and manipulate until she secures her place. Danny suggests that instead of waiting for Leslie to strike, they should create terms that Leslie cannot ignore. Perhaps an arrangement, perhaps leverage something that forces her hand. Danny warns that if they do not act swiftly, the consequences could be catastrophic, not just for them, but for every member of the Dupree line. Nicole, while initially resistant to compromise, begins to understand that open warfare with Leslie could lead to public scandal, and that would be even worse. Meanwhile, Kat and Naomi are brought into the fold through whispers from their mother. When the news reaches them, both are horrified at the prospect of being tied by blood to Eva and her mother. Naomi, with her sharp tongue, openly calls Leslie a parasite dressed in expensive silk, while Kat quietly recoils at the thought of sharing a family name with someone whose reputation has always been synonymous with destruction. For them, the news is not just inconvenient, it feels like contamination of their very identity. They have always taken pride in being Duprees, in belonging to something exclusive and respected. To be forced into sisterhood with Leslie and Eva feels like a nightmare. As these discussions unfold, Leslie continues her performance as a woman already welcomed into wealth. Her spending is extravagant, her confidence unshaken, but the seed planted by Eva's words lingers. She begins to realize that if she is to truly secure her place, she must take more than just financial advantage. She must create undeniable proof of her belonging, something that forces Vernon and the rest of the family to accept her not just as a claimant, but as blood. This internal conflict marks a turning point. Leslie starts to consider strategies beyond flaunting wealth, strategies that involve pressing Vernon directly, presenting him with a choice he cannot avoid. In her mind, she must not only claim her rights, but also compel the patriarch himself to make a public acknowledgement. To do otherwise would leave her vulnerable, trapped in the limbo between wealth and exclusion. Back in Anita's camp, the conversations grow darker. Anita sees no path forward that doesn't involve neutralizing Leslie's influence entirely. She warns Danny and Nicole that allowing Leslie any space within the family will open floodgates they cannot close. Leslie will not settle for scraps, she will aim to consume everything. Anita's words strike fear into her daughters, but they also spark a fire. If Leslie is playing to win, so must they. The tension escalates when whispers of Leslie's behavior begin to spread beyond the family's private circles. The town begins to take notice of her sudden shift in lifestyle. Those who know her history as a troublemaker raise eyebrows, and rumors swirl that she has struck gold with the Dupree fortune. This public attention forces Anita to act faster. She cannot allow Leslie to dictate the narrative, to paint herself as the rightful heir before Anita and her children have had the chance to strike back. Meanwhile, Eva finds herself trapped between loyalty to her mother and fear of what lies ahead. She watches Leslie drift further into extravagance, the kind that draws judgment from everyone who sees. Eva's warnings go unheeded, but she cannot shake the feeling that her mother is dancing on the edge of disaster. Her love for Leslie is real, but her instincts tell her that this newfound glory may not last, and that when the fall comes, it will be brutal. Every move Leslie makes now feels like a gamble, and every countermeasure from Anita feels like the tightening of a noose. The Dupree family, once united in their sense of superiority and exclusivity, is splintering under the pressure of a woman who has clawed her way into their orbit. What began as a rumor is now shaping into a full-scale war, one that will determine not just who inherits Vernon's wealth, but who defines the very meaning of being a Dupree. And as the battle lines are drawn, one truth becomes painfully clear: no one will emerge from this unscathed. The family's silence becomes unbearable as Vernon grows older and more fragile, leaving his household and empire in a precarious state. Everyone knows he will soon need to declare where his loyalties lie, and the stakes of that decision weigh heavily on Anita, Danny, Nicole, Kat, and Naomi. Leslie, emboldened by her recent successes, sharpens her resolve. She is not content with whispers of acknowledgement. She wants Vernon to say it out loud, to put her name next to his other daughters and remove the shadows that have haunted her for years. Anita knows time is slipping. She gathers Danny and Nicole again, this time in an even more secretive location, an old guest house on the Dupree estate rarely used. The conversation turns from speculation to strategy. Anita presses her daughters to think beyond outrage. Danny suggests applying quiet but unrelenting pressure on Leslie by targeting her weaknesses: her reliance on Eva, her history of financial instability, and her compulsive spending. Nicole, still reeling from the humiliation of being forced to consider Leslie as family, argues they should cut her off completely, perhaps even with legal maneuvers to ensure she cannot claim anything. Anita listens carefully, torn between the moral implications and the growing sense that Leslie will not stop until they act decisively. Kat and Naomi, though younger and less involved in the inner machinations, are not blind to what is happening. Kat worries about the legacy they will inherit, how the Dupree name will be remembered if Leslie gains ground. Naomi, sharper and more outspoken, insists that they must protect what is theirs, no matter the cost. She is especially vocal about her disgust for Eva, whom she sees as complicit simply by enabling her mother. Naomi mocks Eva for her attempts to restrain Leslie's spending, dismissing her as weak and powerless in the storm her mother has unleashed. Kat, less cruel but equally resolute, quietly agrees. On the other side of the battlefield, Leslie is still caught between her desire for recognition and the seed of doubt planted by Eva. She spends lavishly, but her mind is preoccupied with how to make Vernon bend. She toys with the idea of forcing his hand by presenting him with undeniable proof: letters, photographs, or testimony that links her mother to Vernon beyond question. Such proof could destabilize Anita's position and silence the daughters who rally against her. Leslie dreams of standing beside Vernon at a public event, introduced not as a scandal but as a rightful heir. Eva watches this descent with growing alarm. She knows her mother thrives on chaos, but she also sees the danger in pushing Vernon too hard. Vernon, for all his wealth and power, is a man obsessed with image. Eva warns her mother again: too much pressure may lead Vernon to reject her outright. Leslie dismisses her concerns, insisting that only boldness wins wars. Yet at night, when the makeup comes off and the lavish dinners are over, Leslie wonders if Eva might be right. For the first time, Leslie questions whether her strategy will end in triumph or ruin. Tension rises further when Danny takes initiative. She approaches Nicole with an idea. Rather than waiting for Leslie to embarrass them, why not set the trap themselves? Danny believes they can exploit Leslie's overconfidence, drawing her into situations that reveal her lack of refinement, her recklessness, and her inability to truly belong in Dupree society. Nicole hesitates at first, worried about stooping to Leslie's level, but the thought of public humiliation appeals to her sense of justice. Together, the sisters plot subtle ways to expose Leslie. They invite her to gatherings where every gesture is scrutinized, every misstep noted. Leslie, unaware of their schemes, takes the bait, flaunting her wealth and making careless remarks that ripple through the town's gossip circles. Kat and Naomi watch with satisfaction as Leslie's performance begins to falter. Yet Eva becomes increasingly isolated, caught between defending her mother and recognizing the damage being done. She tries to rein Leslie in, reminding her that every slip of the tongue, every exaggerated purchase, only fuels Anita's case against her. But Leslie, too proud to admit weakness, pushes forward, determined to prove herself in the face of ridicule. Anita, though pleased with her daughter's efforts, knows humiliation alone will not keep Leslie at bay. She seeks more permanent solutions, considering legal challenges that could discredit Leslie's claim. She confides in Danny that they must be ready to confront Vernon directly, to demand that he clarify his intentions before Leslie forces his hand. Anita fears that Vernon's silence could be interpreted as tacit approval, and that delay only strengthens Leslie's position. The drama escalates when Eva, overwhelmed by the relentless battle, confronts Anita in a private encounter. She pleads for understanding, insisting that she and her mother only want recognition, not destruction. Anita listens, but her heart hardens. She sees Eva as an extension of Leslie's ambitions, a softer mask for the same hunger. Anita warns Eva that the Dupree family will never accept Leslie, and that pushing further will only lead to ruin. The exchange leaves Eva shaken, torn between loyalty to her mother and the undeniable reality that Anita and her daughters will never see her as anything more than an intruder. As Vernon's health visibly declines, whispers spread through the town. Who will inherit? Who will be cast aside? The Dupree family, once united in their polished image, becomes the subject of endless speculation. Leslie seizes this moment, making her presence more visible, attending public events where eyes cannot ignore her. She introduces Eva with pride, daring the world to challenge her claim. For some, her boldness is admirable. For others, it is shameless. The climax looms as Danny pushes forward with her plan to corner Leslie into a choice. She suggests offering her a settlement financial package designed to silence her and keep her away from the family's core. Nicole balks, calling it a bribe, but Danny insists it is better than letting Leslie continue her rampage unchecked. Anita, weary from months of tension, agrees to consider it. But Naomi reacts with outrage. She argues that paying Leslie is surrender, an admission that she has power over them. Kat, torn between reason and pride, remains silent but uneasy. Meanwhile, Leslie herself begins to suspect that the family is maneuvering against her. She notices the subtle shifts in behavior, the cold smiles, the orchestrated humiliations. Fueled by paranoia, she tells Eva that the Duprees will never give her what she deserves voluntarily. If they will not welcome her, then she will take it by force. She hints at unveiling Vernon's secret in a way that cannot be denied, perhaps at a public gathering where the truth would spread instantly. Eva begs her to stop, terrified of the fallout, but Leslie is unstoppable. She frames it as destiny, telling Eva that they are no longer beggars at the gate, but rightful heirs demanding entrance. The fire in her eyes is unrelenting, even as her daughter trembles at the path ahead. The Dupree sisters brace themselves for the storm. Anita, Danny, Nicole, Kat, and Naomi all know the next move will define the rest of their lives. If Leslie reveals the secret, the scandal will stain them forever. If they silence her, they risk crossing lines that can never be uncrossed. The weight of legacy, money, and blood pulls them into a battle none of them ever wanted, but all of them are now forced to fight. As the stage sets for confrontation, every glance, every whisper, every choice carries the weight of generations. The Duprees and Leslie stand locked in a silent war, each side convinced they are protecting what is rightfully theirs. And in the middle of it all stands Eva, a reluctant witness to a war between the mother she loves and the family that will never call her their own. The ending remains uncertain, with the family on the edge of revelation or ruin, and the town watching closely as the fate of the Dupree name hangs by a single thread. The Dupree estate had never felt so fragile. The marble halls, once symbols of stability, echoed with unspoken fears. The family dinners had become theater miles brittle, words chosen with surgical precision, and silence often louder than speech. Everyone was waiting for Vernon to decide, yet he remained a ghost in his own home, slipping further into frailty, his mind sharp one day and clouded the next. His silence, however, was not ignorance. Vernon was watching. Leslie grew impatient. She had tasted the edge of power and could not bear to step back into obscurity. Every time Anita's daughters glared at her across a room, every whispered insult from Naomi, every carefully orchestrated snub from Danny and Nicole fueled her determination. She began drafting her own speech, a confession mixed with accusation, to deliver at the charity gala that Vernon had once insisted be the crown jewel of the family's calendar. The gala would be her stage, and the Duprees would have no choice but to listen. Eva begged her mother not to do it. The words spilled out like a prayer. If you humiliate them in front of the whole town, there will be no way back. You will be the villain, not the daughter. But Leslie, consumed by pride and fear, shook her head. They already see me as the villain, Eva. At least let me be the villain who tells the truth. Meanwhile, Anita's side of the family gathered in tense anticipation. Danny revealed the plan. They would confront Leslie before the gala, offering her one last choice: accept a settlement to disappear quietly or face complete war. Nicole supported the move, though her voice trembled with rage. Naomi scoffed at compromise, muttering that Leslie deserved ruin, not reward. Kat, quieter than the rest, whispered her doubts. If we push her too far, she'll burn the whole house down just to watch it fall. On the night of the gala, the ballroom glittered with chandeliers and pearls. The town's elite gathered like moths to flame. Vernon was wheeled in by attendants, frail but dignified, his presence alone commanding silence. For a moment, everyone forgot the storm. The patriarch was there, and order still held. But the illusion fractured as Leslie entered, wearing a gown brighter than anything else in the room. Eva followed behind, her face pale with dread. Whispers spread like fire. That's her. Vernon's other daughter. Anita tightened her grip on Danny's arm. Nicole watched Leslie with open disgust. Naomi rolled her eyes, muttering insults under her breath. Kat studied Eva instead, catching the quiet panic in her eyes. The moment Leslie stepped forward, time seemed to slow. She opened her mouth, and the room braced for revelation. But before she could speak, Danny intercepted her, voice sharp and cutting. Don't do this here. Leslie smirked, her eyes glinting. Why not? Isn't this the perfect stage? A Dupree event, filled with witnesses. Isn't this what you've been afraid of? Nicole's temper flared. You don't belong here. You never will. The crowd gasped at the outburst, whispers growing louder. Leslie raised her chin. I belong here more than you care to admit. Vernon is my father. That makes me family, whether you like it or not. The words cracked through the hall, shattering the last pretense of unity. All eyes turned to Vernon, whose face remained unreadable. Anita felt the ground slipping from under her. If Vernon spoke now, if he confirmed it, everything would change. Eva, trembling, stepped between her mother and the Duprees. Her voice shook but carried. Stop. Please. This isn't the way. She looked at Vernon directly. You've hidden us for too long. Decide now. Do we matter, or are we just shadows you pretend never existed? The silence was suffocating. Vernon's lips parted, his voice gravelly but steady. You matter. Gasps erupted. Leslie's eyes filled with tears, the victory she craved finally spoken aloud. Anita staggered, her daughters' faces pale with shock. For years they had been the chosen ones, and now the gates had opened to admit another. But Vernon wasn't finished. You matter, he repeated, but that does not mean you inherit. My wealth, my estate, my legacy will not be destroyed by greed. You are my blood, Leslie, but blood alone does not entitle you. The crowd rippled with confusion. Leslie's triumph turned to horror. What are you saying? You can't acknowledge me and then deny me. Vernon's eyes, though weary, held steel. I can. And I just did. You wanted the world to know who you are. Now they know. But money, power, those must be earned. And you have not earned them. The ballroom erupted into whispers again. Anita's relief was almost dizzying, though tempered by the damage already done. Danny exhaled sharply. Nicole smirked with bitter satisfaction. Naomi muttered, "Good riddance," while Kat watched Eva with pity. Leslie collapsed into a chair, the room spinning around her. Eva knelt beside her mother, whispering, "It's over. Please, let it be over." For once, Leslie did not argue. The fire in her eyes dimmed, leaving only exhaustion. The gala continued, but nothing felt celebratory. The Dupree name had been cracked open, secrets spilled for all to see. Though Vernon had preserved the estate, the illusion of perfection was gone forever. Anita knew the whispers would never end, that the Duprees would forever be associated with scandal. Yet, in her heart, she also knew they had survived. As the night closed, Eva guided her mother out of the hall, her arm steadying Leslie's trembling steps. Anita and her daughters watched in silence. None of them spoke, but the truth was clear. Leslie had been acknowledged but not embraced, validated yet denied. She was family in name, but not in legacy. And for the Duprees, survival was victory enough.